All right. I'm Peter Alessandria, and for the next 90 minutes, I invite you to be bigger than you think you are. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Let's take a look at our agenda for this evening. As usual, we're going to start with some announcements, then we have our recommended reading. We have our affirmation of the day, then we'll do introductions and victories. After that, we will do an excerpt from my audiobook, Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. We're still in chapter 5. We'll have our topic discussion. We'll take a break at about 8:45 or so, and we'll come back and work on the assignment, do some questions and answers, and wrap it up by 9:30. A reminder, this workshop is being recorded and will be available on the BeBiggerToday.com website and YouTube channel within the next 48 hours. Please feel free to stop your video and mute your microphone if you do not wish to be seen or heard on the recording. I have a few more author-signed paperbacks. Use the discount code WORKSHOP20 at checkout to save 20%. This is for the author-signed first edition paperback of Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. Go to bebiggertoday.com/book to get your copy. And while you're there, check out my New York City photo book, New York Cityscapes. This is a collaboration between myself and 6 other New York City area photographers. It is the penultimate, the ultimate, the definitive New York City photo book. Original photos from myself and 6 other photographers covering the New York City landmarks and skyline that you guys know and love. You can get this at the website as well, and it's on sale for $16.95, bebiggertoday.com/bookstore, and I'll sign that as well. Still working on the audiobook. It is available for pre-order at $9.99. Get it at bebiggertoday.com/bookstore. And the audiobook and the paperback, author-signed paperback, come with a full money-back guarantee. If you don't love it, just let me know and I'll send you your money back. But I know you're going to love it. I'll love it when it's be finished, too. All right, and get some merch, hats and T-shirts. BeBiggerToday.com/merch. Use code MERCH20 at checkout to save 20%. And while you're there, also check out my original art and photography. These are all original, limited edition, professionally framed prints of my New York City photos, my landscape photos, and my abstracts. And here is a little commercial for you guys.
Peter's photos and abstract designs are uniquely beautiful, one-of-a-kind works of art. These gallery-wrapped canvas prints are set in a contemporary shadow box floating frame and will enhance the beauty of any home or office. Available in 4 different sizes, each piece is professionally framed and comes complete and ready to hang. Frames are available in your choice of black, white, or brown, and each is signed by the artist. Peter's original art and photography will make a great gift for a client, for yourself, or someone you love. Order yours today.
All right, and speaking of goodies and original art and photography, I also have refrigerator magnets. These are the Forgiveness refrigerator magnets, available on my website at bebiggertoday.com/merch. And the reason I call them the Forgiveness refrigerator magnets is because there's a story behind these. I wrote this article recently for Morning Laziness, The Art and Soul of Forgiveness, and I talk about how this New York City souvenir collection came about. So you can go to my website, bebiggertoday.com. You'll see this photo on the homepage. Click on that, and it will take you to the article that I wrote for Morning Laziness. And I am available for one-on-one coaching and or corporate consulting. If you have a business and you would like me to come in and speak to your management team, your sales team, on how they can be bigger than they think they are, I'm your guy. Reach out to me through the website, or if you're a creative person, a writer, a photographer, an artist, and you would like to work one-on-one with me, I'm available for that as well. So reach out to me through the website and we'll set that up. And finally, I am accepting donations in order to keep offering the workshop at no charge and to keep it open to everyone. We have a suggested donation of $5 per week or $20 per month. You can send your contribution to me via PayPal at paypal.me/Peter Alessandria, all one word. And to everybody who has donated, thank you so much. You guys have been very generous. I really appreciate that. And I thank you for your continued support. All right, so we're on to our recommended reading for tonight. The title of this book is Codependent No More: How to Stop Controlling Others and Start Caring for Yourself. And it was written by Melody Beatty. Now, this is the only book I'm ever going to recommend to you guys that I haven't actually read myself. Now, there's a reason for this. It's kind of an extraordinary situation. Tonight, I'm going to talk about my journey through codependency. And this book has been highly recommended to me over the years. I've heard people share about it at 12-step programs, Codependence Anonymous and whatnot. I know that this book has impacted a lot of people in a very positive way. And from what I understand, it's also a great introduction to what is codependency. And we're going to talk a lot about that tonight. And so this book comes highly recommended to me. And so I'm going to highly recommend it to you guys, and eventually I am going to either read or listen to this book. But I did want to make it available to you guys since we're talking about this topic tonight. You can get it on Amazon. There's two different covers. It's the same book, but I guess they're different editions or whatever. You can go to Melody Beatty's website, which is melodybeatty.com. You can go to Amazon. You can get this on Audible if you want to listen to it. The whole deal. So I think this will be helpful for people who are brand new to the topic of codependency. So that's basically why I'm recommending it to you guys. And this has been the definitive book for people just entering into recovery or learning about the topic and so on. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. All right, so here's our affirmation for the day, affirmation of the day. I can shift how I see myself, and when I do, my whole life will change. And then underneath that I have shift happens. I think I want to get some t-shirts made up that say shift happens. So I can shift how I see myself. Now, we've been talking about, since day one, we've been talking about the idea that how we see ourselves determines everything. It's my belief and my experience that how I see myself, it's impossible for me to act in a way that's inconsistent with my predominant thoughts and beliefs about myself. This question of who do I think I am, who do you think you are, is crucial because it gives us the insight into the fact that this idea that we have about ourselves, this concept that we have about ourselves, who we think we are, is going to direct every aspect of our lives. And most of the time, we spend a lot of time and energy trying to change habits, behaviors, or the external situations of our lives. It's my position, based on my experience, that the only thing we really have to do is shift how we see ourselves, and then our whole life will change. Everything will follow. As we have a new idea about ourselves, our habits, our behaviors will change automatically without any real effort. So that's why I like this affirmation. I can shift how I see myself. And another way of saying shift is I can change how I see myself. And when I do, my whole life will change. This also puts us in the driver's seat. You know, we're not victims of what's going on outside of us in the world, other people, situations, and all of that. Remember, we always have the ability to change our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. We can't change the external events, circumstances, and people, but we can always change how we see ourselves. And the way we do that is by changing our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. And when we do that, our whole life begins to change. All right? So just remember, shift happens, and that's the beginning of a whole new life. All right, so this is the time of the meeting where we can either introduce ourselves if we're new, if somebody's new, they want to say hi, introduce themselves, or if somebody would like to share a victory and let us know what's going on from the last week. This is your opportunity to do that. All you need to do is unmute yourself and you can speak up and take it away.
I'll share.
Go ahead, Dee Dee.
Okay, we're learning about why we do things. And since I do what I do because I want to feel better, I've talked before about being pain avoidant. I know that I am in some regards, in some areas, especially where I've made mistakes. I don't like to make mistakes. And I have some that I haven't forgiven myself for. That's why I'm here, because I'm going to get to chapter 7. But in the meantime, I'm watching. I'm trying to take a 30,000 foot view and just watch. Well, okay, so I made that choice, and I made that choice, and I made that choice, and I don't have to. I don't have to go into the self-loathing if I'm not happy with my choice. But it's tricky because going into the self-loathing is the habit. So I'm really here to change bad habits.
Just if I can ask you a question about all that, Dee Dee, how do you define pain avoidant? What does that mean?
I have some things that have been at the top of my list to do for a while. And because to actually do them and complete them, I have to feel, or no, I don't have to. I am afraid that I'm going to feel the pain of the fact that I've made choices that I'm not happy with. And I don't want to feel those. I don't want to have those thoughts or feel those feelings. So I avoid. But I can say that I'm not afraid of other people's pain, and I actually can move towards other people's pain. So the fact that we're going to review codependency is huge for me, because I had actually apologized today already because I do that thing where I focus out instead of taking care of my own business. I'm in the right place. How do I? Did I answer your question?
Well, yeah. So for me, the pain that I would feel in a situation like that, if I feel like I made a choice or decision that wasn't the best choice or decision, the pain comes from the self-recrimination, self-loathing, and all of that. So I just want to see, is that
yes?
Okay.
Yes, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to think it, and I don't want to feel it.
All right, great. And you get to decide, right?
Well, I hope so. Right now it's a habit. And I look forward to it being more automated. And I want to have that choice right now. I'm afraid that I don't, but I want to. That's why I'm here.
Okay. All right, great. All right, so we're just talking about more reprogramming.
Yes.
All right. Anybody else want to say hi or share a victory?
Whoops.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi. I'm a little slow here. I want to share my victories. This last week, I had been interviewed for overcoming emotional eating, and the interview is something I like to do. I like that part. And I got the courage to watch it all the way from start to finish, and decided that I liked the interview even. And from the other perspective of listening. But the other thing that I did that was really a very big victory was to send out information to a wide variety of people to say, this is what I've done, and it is accessible to you, and would you like to listen? And that was a huge, huge victory, because that's something that is really, ooh. So I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
All right, great. That deserves a woohoo, woohoo. Good job. It's great. Putting yourself out there. I understand the challenges around that for sure. Good. Who else? Lynn?
Just want to say, I don't know since you have changed, because I noticed that since I have changed some things and I'm putting more boundaries, people are reacting over the change. And some people, if I don't answer like I was answering them, because sometimes I don't want to be where I was before. And they said, "Oh, I think you're not well. Is everything is going okay? Are you sure?" And it's been three or four people that send me that things recently, and I don't know what to do with that. So
Very
when you
great.
change, it's I don't want to go back where I was, but it's like they don't accept that that doesn't pass anymore. And yeah, that's it.
All right, well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Lynn. Are you happy with where you're at?
Yes, yes, I am. But it's difficult to see that the people, because I'm the one who always reassuring people and say, "Oh, everything will be all right." And sometimes I'm getting like, okay, I have a little bit. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know. I'm sorry for my English, by the way. And I was there for them a lot, a lot, a lot. And sometimes you notice that maybe when you need maybe them, but they're not there. And if they want to share something and I don't respond like I used to respond before, they said, "Oh, I think you're not well." And I said, "Oh, yes, I am well. It's okay." But and it's getting like not a fight, but they're mad at me, and that I don't like, to people to be mad at me. So I don't know what to do with that thing.
All right, great. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I'll share about my experience with that. And if you
Okay.
want to talk more, you can share now or later, whatever you want to do. It's actually a perfect topic for our discussion tonight as well. So the
Okay.
thing that I noticed, number one, is not everybody is happy when I change because they expect the same Peter to show up.
Yeah,
And
that's
when the
right.
same Peter doesn't show up, sometimes they're not happy about that.
Yeah.
They want the old Peter.
Yes, that's right.
And so when somebody new is there, now here's the thing, this is my experience, Lynn. I don't know if it's true for you or anybody else. But I don't have a lot of the same friends that I used to have. Not because of them, not because there's anything wrong with them or anybody else. It just was no longer a good fit. And I didn't want to be who I used to be in order to stay in that relationship. And they were not willing to accommodate a new person, a new Peter. They wanted the old Peter. And it's not good or bad. It's not right or wrong. I talk about in chapter, I think it's 6 and 7, I talk about, we teach people who we are. We teach people how it's okay to treat us, what to expect from us. And when I started taking care of myself and having healthier boundaries with people and not doing as much emotional caretaking and a lot of the codependency stuff that we're going to talk about tonight, when I stopped doing that, they didn't like that,
Okay.
and so I had to make a decision. Now there are some people who were fine and they were able to accommodate, and they went with the change, and we still have good relationships. But there's some other people that they just kind of fell away. I'm not friendly with them anymore, and it's not to make them wrong. It's not to make me wrong. It just was no longer a good fit. They wanted somebody else, and I was no longer willing to be that person.
Yeah, that's right. And like example, sometimes those people who things happen and they are like, for an example, they were so mad that they send me text that was, I said, why is she sending me that? Only because I didn't respond what she was waiting me to respond. And but um, I decided that okay, that's the way she sees it, but I'm gonna take step by step, leave that things because it doesn't belong to me anymore. I'm getting to programming to accept that, and I don't have to be what she wants or he or whatever want me to. I I think I'm old enough now to said okay, I decided to change, so I will have to make it step by step, and I will get there. I will get there, but it's sometimes it's difficult to accept that you have to lose some people and let them go away,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's great. Lynn, I only have one thing to say. Woohoo!
Thank you, Peter.
That's great because what I hear is that you're willing to take care of yourself even at the risk of upsetting somebody else. And it's like when I stand up for myself, when I do what's right for me, that's more important than whether or not somebody else likes me or likes what I'm doing or whatever. And that's huge. That's so good. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, I gave a lot of to those people, and uh, I didn't give to receive. It's not that, but when sometimes it's like too much, uh, I don't feel well, and I can feel it inside now, and the feeling is so strong that I said, no, okay, you have to go forward. Don't go back. Don't go back. And that's what I'm trying to do now.
Well, that's excellent. I mean, that's really good because, again, you're honoring yourself, you're honoring your feelings, you're paying attention. Because here's the thing, I had those feelings, but I ignored them, and because I wanted people to like me, I didn't want to upset people or whatever. And the more I ignored my truth, the more I ignored what was good for me, the worse it got. And I had physical symptoms, I had emotional symptoms, it was not honoring myself. Uh, that's, for me, that was symptomatic of my codependency. It was symptomatic of the fact that I had low self-esteem. So when I started to honor myself, I began to feel better about myself. And here's the other thing too. Um, I don't have to explain myself to anybody.
Yeah.
I don't have to explain, defend, or justify my choices to anybody. Now, I'm going to talk about this in chapter 7. If I value the relationship, I can explain to somebody why I'm making a particular choice, but I do that voluntarily. I don't have to explain myself to anybody. I can if I want to, and they may or may not understand that, but I don't have to do that. And that's me taking my power back. My sister, she has 3 kids, and I go over there sometimes. And last summer, her kids were playing with the neighbors' kids. They have 2 boys, and I don't remember exactly what the situation was, but like they were jumping. The boys, there were 3 boys. They're very active, and the boys were jumping off this boulder, this rock. They're all about 6, 7, 8 years old, And at one point, one of the other kids came over and was complaining to his mother that, they were making him do something that he didn't want to do. And his mother said, I thought this was great. His mother said to him, be your own person. You decide what you want to do. Don't do something because somebody else tells you have to do it. So that's my thing now. I want to be my own person. I'm not going to do things because I think somebody else is going to like me more, or I'll make them feel better and make everything okay with them, or whatever. It's not my job.
Yeah, right. Okay. And I want to say hi to everybody who's there tonight and every week. And I hope you're understand me when I'm talking English, but I'm French, so I'm trying to do my best. But I think Peter is understand me tonight, so I think I must be okay.
You're doing great, Lynn. I understand.
Okay.
I understand every word you say.
Okay, I have the word in my head, but sometimes it's not going out the way I want it. So, but I'm doing my best. Thank you, Peter.
All right, great. Thank you, Lynn. Good job.
Thanks.
Who else? Anybody else want to say hi or share a victory?
Say hi.
Hi, Barb.
How are you?
Good.
I got the vaccine.
Good.
So there's victory.
Wow.
Everybody's woo woo. Not an easy
Great.
task. Yep, gotta go 3 weeks and get the next one. But yep. So that was a good thing. And I figured that was a victory. As far as anything else, things are the same. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Oh. But my ongoing saga with my big problem with the tax statements, I don't know what to say. I don't know. I know it has everything to do with my attitude. So it has everything to do with what we're talking about. And, because my attitude has changed, my attitude has shifted. So everything is different, and, I just have to, we're still working on it. The person I work with, it didn't become a disaster. She's, we're going along with it. But we had a flood of people that wanted tax statements, so we must have sent out an awful lot of them today. So we'll see what happens when it comes back. Like I said, I found a way to fix it, and it should satisfy everybody.
All right, good.
Yeah, so I guess that's a victory. The victory really, Peter, is the shift, like you say, in attitude. It's unbelievable. I don't beat myself up over it. I think somebody said it to me when I first mentioned that thing, and like, you wouldn't even be able to sleep. You would be obsessed by it. You would be this and that. If you really, walk the walk of what we're talking about, you can handle it. You can, because you feel good about yourself. It's like everything is, I'm going to care about me. I'm not going to care about everybody else in this situation and everything. I'm going to care about me and my day. Right?
Well, again, I think I talk about this in chapter 6 as well, or 7, or maybe it's in this chapter. But when we put ourselves first, when we take care of ourselves, not in a selfish way, not in an arrogant way, but what that does is it enables us to bring the best of us to that situation. If I'm all stressed out, I'm not going to do a good job for my employer or my client. If I'm beating myself up, I can't really be of service to other people in a positive, healthy way. So by putting myself first, by taking care of myself in a healthy way, not beating myself up, not making myself wrong, being more forgiving of myself and understanding of when I make a mistake, then I can actually really be helpful to other people. I can do a really good job.
Yeah. Because if I, want to, and I don't want to, who wants to go into the past? But I could think about, that time that I really messed up. It colored everything. It probably created a very bad attitude. And that's, that's something that has always happened to me. You know, I would be in a position and I think I'm doing a great job. And then a little while later, something will come up. I guess the thing would be when I was a flight attendant. And I'll never forget it. When I left, somebody said they opened up my report and they couldn't believe what they saw in it. And what they saw was, you know, people, you know, saying things about me. And I was like, what? I thought I was the greatest thing in the whole world. But I definitely had we definitely, you or whatever, have a problem when if, you know, like you're saying, if it affected me, then it colored everything I did. It colored the way I talked. It colored the way I worked. It colored the way that I wound up, people were writing things about me that I didn't even know. You know, I mean, I remember being shocked. I was like, oh, I was great, but I wasn't great because I was, what is the word? What word am I not being able to grab, Peter? I was, well, not taking care of myself. What is the word? Not loving myself.
Why don't you wait on the word until after we get into the material for tonight, and then the word may come.
Okay. You know, do you know the word?
Well, I want you to pick the word. I don't want to pick the word for you.
Okay.
All right, so that's great. So I that's a victory. I mean, the change in attitude, that alone can change. That could change a person's life.
And that's what it's doing. Exactly.
Good.
Okay.
Ready? I'll give you a woohoo.
And the vaccine, I don't know how everybody feels about it, but I'm glad to have it.
Good. That's taking care of yourself.
Yes.
Put yourself first. Do what's right for you.
Yes, because that's what was happening. I was working and all the teachers were going. There was about 18 of them. And they were going, you know, they got the thing. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at them and I go up to the priest and I said, can I join this group? And he was like, well, you know, and right away you're going to get, oh, I don't know. And then he just called up and said, can I add somebody's name to the list? And they were like, sure. I mean, you got to be over 65. So it was a good thing to be old.
Right. All right, good.
Okay.
All right, cool. Thanks, Barb.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? All right, so let's jump in to our topic for tonight. We're continuing in chapter 5, decision making and the desire to feel better. We're going to take a little detour. It's a seeming detour, but not really. I decided at the last minute to kind of change what I was going to talk about tonight, although hopefully it'll be obvious why once we get into it. All right, so we're going to start with the audiobook excerpt, then we'll come back and do a little topic discussion and then go from there. Whoop. So let's get the book.
Ambidexterity. Many years ago, when I first got into recovery for codependency, I was overwhelmed at the depth and breadth of the dysfunction in my life. I thought it would be just about impossible to change all that I was beginning to identify as my codependent behaviors. As an example, I saw that I routinely relied on people-pleasing in order to feel safe around others and get what I wanted. One way this manifested was me saying yes to things I really wanted to say no to. I did this because I thought that's what the other person wanted to hear, and thus they would like me more. But since it wasn't something I really wanted to do, I later found ways to weasel out of my agreements. Of course, because I knew nothing about taking responsibility for my actions, I would blame the other person when things didn't work out. I actually thought they should be able to read my mind and know that I didn't really want to do what I said I would do. Yes, that's how crazy I was. Another thing I did on a regular basis was to become enmeshed with other people's personal or emotional problems. I tried to fix or save everyone I met, telling them all the things they needed to do to get their lives together. Ostensibly, this was my attempt to help them feel better. But looking back, I can see now that I did it so I could feel better. If I could solve someone else's problems or relieve their pain, I felt valuable, worthy, and important. But most of all, I felt powerful. For someone who perceives themselves as powerless, recall my 2 problems from chapter 4, playing therapist and fixing other people's problems became like a drug. Along these same lines, I freely gave other people advice when they hadn't asked for it. I jumped in with suggestions about everything from their health to their relationships to their job situations. Then, when they declined to take my wonderful advice, I felt resentful. For me, offering others advice and suggestions was a way of showing that I cared. I wanted their lives to be better and was sure I knew how they could get there. Yet offering unsolicited suggestions or advice is actually self-indulgent and disrespectful. It basically sends the message, I don't think the other person can take care of themselves. Of course, I hated when someone else did this to me, telling me all the things I needed to do to change my own life without me asking. Yet it never registered that I was doing the same thing to others. Yes, that's how crazy I was. In addition, there were general codependent patterns I kept repeating in many of my relationships, such as feeling like a victim, feeling unworthy, making other people, especially women, my higher power, being afraid to ask for what I wanted or needed, using magical thinking to avoid hard work, and so on. Seeing all this was quite overwhelming. Prior to learning about codependency, I thought most of these behaviors were normal. Yet the more I looked, the more I could see how unhealthy I was. These behaviors were so deeply ingrained that I thought it was futile to even try to change them, and I ended up feeling more than a little hopeless. Now this is where it gets a bit strange. As I was pondering the enormity and potential futility of trying to change my codependent behaviors, the thought came to mind that maybe I could experiment with something else that was also deeply ingrained in me, but wasn't the cause of so much pain in my life. I was looking for a metaphor, trying to change something that was so seemingly natural and automatic that it had to be hardwired into my brain. My thought was, if I could change something like that, then maybe I could change these codependent behaviors as well. One day the idea came, what about being right-handed? That seemed to be as natural, automatic, and deeply ingrained as it gets. It also had the very strong element of seemingly being dictated by my physiology, the brain and body, rather than a conscious choice of the mind. So I began a journey to see if I could break the habit of being right-handed by consciously choosing to do everything with my left hand. Told you I was a bit strange. At first it was very, very difficult, mostly because I would forget I was doing this little experiment. I would be halfway through a meal before I realized I was using my right hand to hold my fork instead of my left. This went on for many weeks. I would start the day determined to use my left hand as much as possible, only to have most of the day go by before I even remembered what I was trying to do. Eventually, I began to remember more and more, but then I was faced with the obvious challenge that I lacked coordination with my left hand. This made ordinary tasks quite difficult. For example, it took me more than a few days to figure out the proper way to hold a spoon with my left hand. I also remember the day I decided to try shaving left-handed. There were several anxious moments as I attempted to shave both sides of my face without cutting myself. Not as frightening, but equally difficult, was learning how to brush my teeth with my left hand. I couldn't understand how to hold the brush to get to my back teeth on the left side. I plugged along like this for a couple of months. At times it seemed impossible, and at other times kind of silly. But it also felt quite profound, like I was overcoming some inherent aspect of being human. So I kept at it. I noticed from the get-go that I had to be really present and aware. This was going to require my full consciousness on a moment-by-moment basis. All the mundane things I used to do automatically now required my undivided attention. Still, I kept at it, doing my best every day to change this aspect of my life. Eventually, my hard work paid off. It soon became so natural for me to use my left hand that people started to notice. "Hey, I didn't know you were left-handed," they would say. "I'm not," I would reply with a broad smile. "I'm right-handed, but I do everything with my left hand." Not surprisingly, those conversations were quite short and usually ended with a very confused look on the other person's face. But I cherished those moments because I knew it meant I was making progress. For the first few years, yes, I was at this for years, I would often revert back to old ways of doing things in times of stress. If I was overly anxious about something, halfway through the activity I would realize I was using my right hand instead of my left. We mentioned regression earlier. Psychologists define regression as a return to an earlier state in times of heightened stress. As I continued to stick with my little experiment, the length and frequency of the regressions diminished to the point where today I rarely regress at all. At the same time, the awkwardness I felt when I was starting out was almost completely gone. My coordination grew, and I soon became very comfortable using my left hand. Eventually, I could accomplish many tasks almost as efficiently as I had with my right. But the biggest change was when it began to feel uncomfortable to use my right hand for things. This was kind of startling at first. It was one thing to feel comfortable doing things left-handed, but it was quite another to notice it actually felt awkward, even unnatural, to use my right hand for tasks I had used it for my whole life. This is when I really began to appreciate the power of the mind versus the proclivities and habits of the body. And in case you're wondering, I still do most things with my left hand today. Footnote 38. Full disclosure, the one thing I still can't do well with my left hand is write. Back to the text. The importance for me of what turned out to be this not-so-little experiment was that if in fact it's possible to change something as deeply ingrained as right or left-handedness, then it must also be possible to change behaviors and patterns of thinking that seem so natural as to define who we think we are. Eventually, I used this "I'm right-handed but do everything with my left hand" metaphor in breaking many of my codependent habits. I could see how recovery from codependence paralleled this ambidextrous experience almost exactly. For instance, at first, I usually completely forgot I was trying to change how I interacted with others. Days would go by before I realized I had been codependent with someone. Then, when I was aware, it felt really, really awkward trying to do things differently. Saying something like, "I'm sorry you're having trouble with your boss, but you'll have to find someone else to complain to about it," felt really uncomfortable at first. It also required effort to do things like not say yes when I wanted to say no, to refrain from offering other people unsolicited advice, and to not automatically assume other people were better or more important than me. Soon I felt more and more comfortable interacting with others in healthy ways. Yet, just like using my left hand, there were many times when I regressed. Something stressful would take me right back to how I used to be. Still, as I kept at it, I regressed less and less, and I eventually felt quite comfortable being more functional and healthy in my relationships with other people. And in time, just like using my right hand for things, it became uncomfortable to interact with others the way I used to. Behaviors that were so natural and seemingly normal now felt unnatural. The discomfort when I slipped back to my old ways was often immediate. I knew instinctively I had fallen off the beam. So I'm happy to say that after many years of practice, most of the old habits have died in me. It took a lot of effort and in many cases a moment-by-moment awareness of my choices. Yet today, in most instances, I'm able to experience a new, healthier way of interacting with others.
All right, so there's the audiobook for tonight. So you'll see in a minute why we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. But I want to preface all of this with a couple of points. So the first thing is, in terms of our discussion of decision making, we talked about, and for me, this was more in the context of addictive compulsive behaviors, and I feel codependency falls into that genre, into that category. We have it's difficult to make good choices and decisions when my life is being run by this negative pattern of thinking, this negative pattern of behavior. So we come up against ourselves when we're making choices and decisions, and we find out, if we're paying attention at least, what's driving those choices and decisions and whether or not that's serving us. And this little experiment, I'm still doing it today. I use my left hand for almost everything. And it just serves as a reminder for me that, the power of the mind, that's where our power of choice lies. The ability to make choices and decisions despite what we may have going on with the body, what addictions we may have and all of that. It's ultimately the mind that determines our choices and decisions. And so the whole idea is to bring some conscious awareness to that process. Now, we're going to talk a lot about codependency tonight. I just want to preface this discussion by saying I have yet to meet somebody, and I've met a lot of people in my life, who doesn't have at least a little bit of what we're going to talk about tonight. So, and having codependent traits or characteristics doesn't make us bad people, doesn't make us unworthy, doesn't make us screwed up, doesn't make us messed up. So if you relate to anything that I talk about tonight, don't go there. You don't have to go there. All right? We all got a little bit of this. And, a lot of it, in my kind of reflecting on it, it stems from a desire to want to connect with people, from a desire to want to have good relationships with people, from a desire that I want people to like me. I want to have harmony in my relationships. I want to have mutual support. And I just had kind of a, not so great way of going about achieving those results. All right? As you'll see. So let me pull up the first slide for tonight, and you'll get an idea what I'm talking about. Now, this is going to be a little dense. There's a lot of material here. And the first thing I want to say is I got this from the Codependence Anonymous website. It's coda, coda.org. These are the patterns and characteristics of codependence. Just this is information, all right? This is, I don't want anybody to beat themselves up if they see themselves reflected in this material. It's simply about raising our awareness and our consciousness so we can make better choices. All right, that's the whole point of all of this. But I can't make better choices if I don't know what's running my life. So these are the denial patterns. Codependents often have difficulty identifying what they're feeling, minimize, alter, or deny how they truly feel, perceive themselves as unselfish and dedicated to the well-being of others, lack empathy for the feelings and needs of others, label others by their negative traits, think that they can take care of themselves without help from others, mask pain in various ways such as anger, humor, and isolation, express negativity or aggression in indirect or passive ways, and do not recognize the unavailability of the people to whom they are attracted. Now, I could identify to a lot of things on this list, and this was one of the, there's actually going to be 4 more pages of this, guys. There's a lot of different characteristics here. But I related to this, and my initial feeling was, I just felt I was just like overwhelmed. It was like, oh my God, this is, all of this stuff seems to apply to me, and I didn't know it was a problem, and I don't know how to change it. And that feeling of being overwhelmed, that feeling of hopelessness, when I first began to study, to become more knowledgeable about all of this, that led to that little experiment where I said, gee, this seems like it's such a part of who I am, and it seems almost hopeless to try to change these behaviors. And so that's where the whole idea of if I could break the habit of being right-handed by doing everything with my left hand, that was the metaphor, that was kind of the test for me to see if I could actually change that much, if it was possible for me to change that much. And I'm happy to tell you guys today, it's possible. And I know a lot of people who have changed in many different, in terms of many different addictive or compulsive behaviors, a lot of people that have made great strides in changing. I heard a bunch of examples tonight from you guys who checked in on your victories. What I'm hearing is that it is possible to change. Shift happens. All right. So these are the denial patterns. I'll just mention a couple real quickly because, as I said, there's 4 more pages of this. Having difficulty identifying how I'm feeling, yes. Minimize, alter, or deny how I truly feel, yes. Label others by their negative traits. I do that, and I label myself by my negative traits. Mask my pain in various ways, and express negativity or aggression in indirect or passive ways. Again, I do all of this much, much less than I used to. But for a long time, this was how I lived my life. Let's move on to the next set of patterns and characteristics. So these are the low self-esteem patterns. Codependents often have difficulty making decisions, judge what they think, say, or do harshly as never good enough. They're embarrassed to receive recognition, praise, or gifts. They value others' approval of their thinking, feeling, and behavior over their own. They do not perceive themselves as lovable or worthwhile people. Put this in the first person. I seek recognition and praise to overcome feeling less than. I have difficulty admitting when I make a mistake. I need to appear right in the eyes of others and may even lie to look good. I'm unable to identify or ask for what I want or need. I perceive myself as superior. Despite all of that, there are times I perceive myself as superior to others. I look to others to provide my sense of safety because I don't believe I can take care of myself. I have difficulty getting started, meeting deadlines, completing projects. I have trouble setting healthy priorities and boundaries. Now, again, I don't know anybody who doesn't have some of this, all right? And what I don't want to do, guys, and I say this to people that I sponsor, I don't want to pathologize life. A lot of this is just, how many of us learn to live life, how many of us learn to interact with others. Doesn't make us bad, doesn't make us wrong, and I don't want to pathologize this, all right? And it's good to become aware that, wow, maybe these are some things that I'm doing that are not serving me. All right, let's carry on. Let's look at our compliance patterns. Codependents are often extremely loyal, remaining in harmful situations too long, compromise their own values and integrity to avoid rejection or anger, put aside their own interests in order to do what others want. That, for me, is people-pleasing. Are hypervigilant regarding the feelings of others and take on those feelings. Are afraid to express my own beliefs and opinions and feelings when they differ from others. I accept sexual attention when I want love. I make decisions without regard to the consequences. And I give up my truth to gain the approval of others or to avoid change. All right, now again, I can see this in my own life. I do this much, much less than I used to, but there was a time in my life when I exhibited many of these characteristics in my relationships with others and with myself. And putting aside my own interest in order to do what others want, this was just a natural response to somebody who doesn't feel worthy, who doesn't feel valuable, who doesn't feel good enough the way I am. So I feel like I have to make other people happy so they'll like me so I can feel okay about myself. That's a great definition of codependency right there. When I change who I am, so I think other people will like me more, and then I'll feel better. I'll feel safe. Remember, the two core questions that follow many of us throughout our lives: am I safe? Am I loved? And I will do all kinds of things so I feel safe and loved in my relationships when I'm not aware that what I'm doing is not really serving me, and that there's another way for me to feel safe and loved in my relationships. Control patterns. Codependents often believe other people are incapable of taking care of themselves. I attempt to convince others of what to think, feel, say, and do. I freely offer advice and direction without being asked. I become resentful when others decline my help and reject my advice. I lavish gifts and favors on those I want to influence. I use sexual attention to gain approval and acceptance. I have to feel needed in order to have a relationship with others. I demand that my needs be met by others instead of meeting my needs by myself. I can use charm to convince others of my capacity to be caring and compassionate. I blame and shame others to exploit them emotionally. I refuse to cooperate, compromise, or negotiate. I can adopt an attitude of indifference, helplessness, authority, or rage to manipulate outcomes. I can use recovery jargon in an attempt to control the behaviors of others and pretend to agree with others to get what I want. Again, there's a lot here. And in some ways, guys, I feel like this is almost too much now that I'm looking at it. There's just so much here. And we have one more. I forgot there's one more list. Avoidance patterns. We act in ways that invite others to reject, shame, or express anger towards us, judge harshly what others think say or do. Avoid emotional, physical, or sexual intimacy as a way to maintain distance. Allow addictions to distract me from intimacy in my relationships. Use indirect or evasive communication to avoid conflict or confrontation. Diminish my capacity to have healthy relationships by declining to take responsibility for my life. They say here, use the tools of recovery. Suppress feelings or needs to avoid feeling vulnerable. Pull people toward me and then push them away when I get afraid. Refuse to give up self-will to avoid surrendering to a power greater than myself. And sometimes I believe displays of emotion are a sign of weakness, and I can withhold expressions of appreciation. And when I withhold expressions of appreciation, it's usually to punish the other person. Now, again, a lot of this is my dysfunctional way of taking care of myself in my relationships. See, I didn't know there were other ways for me to take care of myself. That I didn't have to control or manipulate other people to feel safe, to take care of myself. I didn't know that there was another way to communicate with people that was healthy and functional. A lot of the self-judgment, the self-condemnation, the self-recrimination that we've been talking about came out in my relationships when I felt vulnerable. A lot of this is fear of intimacy, fear of getting close to people, because for me, the fear was, well, geez, once they get to know me, they're not going to like me. So I can't really let people get to know me. I have to keep up that wall. I have to keep up that distance. And that was just, it's not because I'm a bad person. It's not because I'm a screwed up person. It's because that was the only way I knew how to feel safe in those situations. Intimacy, even for healthy, functional people, I think intimacy can be very scary, and can be difficult to navigate. So this was my way of taking care of myself when I didn't know another way. And I was just doing what I learned as a kid and as a young adult and all of that. The point is, all of these characteristics and behaviors created a lot of pain in my life, a lot of dysfunction. And what I learned, primarily through working the Codependence Anonymous 12-step program, and also all the other things that I've done over the years, is that there's another way for me to take care of myself, for me to feel safe, for me to feel loved in my relationships, so I don't have to resort to these patterns of or defects of character, to take care of myself. There's another way to do that. So if you're interested, if you want to find out more, go to the codependence.org website, coda.org. They have a lot of great material there. A few months ago, the recommended reading was the Coda Big Book, Codependence Anonymous. They have what they call the Big Book, which kind of lays out the whole program and talks a lot about fear of shame, talks a lot about setting healthy boundaries with people, how to have intimacy in a healthy way in our relationships, how to avoid a lot of the pitfalls that come up in these lists. Don't use any, if you relate to any of this, please don't use any of this to beat yourself up. It's purely to begin to gain some awareness, an opportunity to reflect on how you've been doing relationships, and maybe there's an opportunity, and maybe not, but maybe there's an opportunity to make some changes for the better. All right, so we're way over time already. Let's look at the exercise for tonight, the assignment. And this is going to come back to our topic, Chapter 5 topic, which is decision making. And the question tonight is, what does it mean to make a choice or decision? And then how do you know if you've made one? So this is really interesting. So I want to hear what you guys have to say about all this. We're going to take a 5-minute break. When we come back, we'll do the exercise, the assignment, and we'll open it up for questions and answers, all right? So we will be back in 5 minutes. All right, so we are back. And again, we'll take a look at the assignment for tonight. Can also, if you guys want to talk about any of the codependency stuff that I mentioned, if you guys are interested in that, we can talk about that a little bit more. Whatever's helpful. This question I think is really, really important though, because I'll just tell you where I'm coming from with this. It's one thing to say that I'm going to do things differently. It's one thing to say, I'm going to change in one aspect of my life. It's another thing to actually follow through on that. And, I found that for me, in this regard at least, actions speak louder than words. So it's not what I say, it's what I do. And that can be difficult at times. And sometimes it takes more than one, it's not just one decision. I have to continually reinforce that decision, or make new decisions that are in alignment with the prior choices and decisions. But it truly is, for me at least, the recognition that actions speak louder than words. The way I know that I've made a choice or decision is that I act differently. I do things differently. It's not just here in my head, it's how I express myself in the world. So I want to hear from you guys on this. You want to talk about this, or like I said, anything else? So now's your chance. If anybody wants to chime in on any of this, just unmute yourself and take it away.
I'll share. Oh, I want to turn that off. Hey, Peter, if you can, this is Dee Dee. If you can become left-handed, I feel like I can do almost anything. So thank you for sharing that dedication to make the change and to what's the word I want to use? Like to continually test yourself, or give yourself that challenge. Even though it took a while, you had to push through because you would forget that was what your attention was. I know, because I've done things similarly. I know that it works. So I really appreciate just being reminded, and I'm so excited for to begin practicing, because I need some relief. And regarding all those codependent traits, yeah, there's some real doozers in there. I'm not talking about it today. Maybe next week.
Right.
Thanks, Pat.
All right. Yeah, I know it's a lot. That's a lot. And I'll tell you, the first time I looked at that list, I was like, "Holy crap!" It was really overwhelming. So if this is the first time you guys are seeing that stuff,
one that did kind of surprise me, that if the need to be needed in order to be in a relationship or to go to an event, or that one is baffling to me. Like, where did that come from? But it's so real. And if somebody can write it down, then I know it's recoverable. Thanks, Pat.
Yeah. So that was, again, I talk about this, I think maybe in chapter 4 I talked about it. This idea that I have to be needed in order to have a relationship with other people. It's because, I think for me at least, it was because that's the way I established my worth and value in that relationship. By doing something for them that maybe they can't do for themselves, having some value or utility for them, that's how I established my worthiness. And I was talking to a friend many years ago when I first saw this, and I just said, we were talking about romantic, intimate relationships, and I said, if somebody doesn't need me, why would they want to be in a relationship with me? And I recognized I confused love and need. And that's not in the first edition. I actually added a section in the second edition in chapter 4 about the distinction between love and need. And so it relates to that, and just being, this feeling that the way I matter is by satisfying a need in somebody else or caretaking them. And again, It's not to say that we can't be helpful in our relationships with other people. It's not to say that we can't, do things for them. It's not to say that we can't contribute to their lives. But when my value and worth as a person is contingent, or as a person in that relationship is contingent on me somehow doing something for somebody else or satisfying a need or whatever, that doesn't really serve me, because in that case, I can't just be loved for who I am. The way I establish whether or not I'm worthy of what? We say, lack of worth and value. Worth being loved is what it is. And so the way, if the only way I'm worth being loved is if I do something for you, then I'm not really being loved for who I am. And vice versa. When I love somebody else for what they can do for me, I'm confusing need and love in my relationships. So yeah, that was a good one. That's a good one. And again, in a lot of cases, it's a fine line. It's not to say we don't help other people, especially people we love or we're in relationship with. It's not to say that we're not supportive, helpful, and all of that. I'm not saying any of that. It's just where I'm coming from when I do all that stuff. And so when I feel good about myself, just the way I am, then I don't have to prove myself to other people by doing for them things or whatever I think I have to do so they'll like me. This is all the mind. This is very interesting. So Pia Mellody, who's another woman who writes a lot about codependency, she says codependence is the disease of immaturity. And for me, that's so true, because it's the thinking of a 5-year-old, where I feel I gotta do whatever I can so people will like me, so they won't be mad at me, because I don't know how to take care of myself as a 5-year-old when somebody's mad at me. So codependence as the disease of immaturity, and I can have compassion for myself. I can, instead of contempt, I can have understanding. I can say, gee, I must have really, I must have really had a challenging time as a kid for me to be an adult man, to have to repeat these patterns in my relationships with bosses, with clients, with girlfriends, I must have had a really hard time as a kid, and so just to have some compassion, some understanding, and some self-love around that. All right, good. Thank you, Dee Dee. Who else?
I am willing to. I appreciate the reiteration of the need to be safe and the need to be loved, to feel safe, to feel loved, and that sometimes I am the one that needs to provide that safety, and I am the one that needs to provide that love, that it isn't an external, it's an internal perceptual change. And that can be a choice. I could say, oh, I'm going to feel safe and loved. And that doesn't do it. I need to actually make the decision to place myself in circumstances where I do feel safe. My sister recently suggested to me that me walking home at night in the dark in Albuquerque was perhaps not the best choice. And I'm walking on a street, there are a lot of people, on the street and everything. So I didn't feel unsafe, but I'm going to listen to what she said and consider it and look for how much crime there is and whatever to get some more factual information so I can make a decision. Then I can make a choice based on that. I can make a decision to get more information. Then I can make a choice about whether that's something, which side of the point I want to fall on. And then the actual decision is to choose whether I'm going to walk at night in the dark. And that acting differently can be a decision that I make. So I've made a lot of choices and decisions over my life. And when I hear the CODA lists, I'm always like, oh my, how much of my life I have literally spent in this way. That's a very CODA dependent. And I particularly am fond of the controlling ones. So those flavors are very, very familiar to me. And I laugh, but I did a lot of harm to myself as well as some others by engaging in those behaviors. So I regret that today, but I can't go back and undo it. But today I can alter my decisions to make better choices and decisions today. Thank you.
Great. All right, good. Thank you, Cynthia. Yeah, so a couple of things for me that come up with that, with what you had to say. Am I safe? Am I loved? When I change how I see myself, and one of the ways that when I change how I see myself is to take action on my own behalf, is to make choices and decisions to take responsibility for my safety. And so that's all part of it, but unless I'm aware that that's what's running me, the feeling of lack of safety or the feeling of lack of love or whatever, it's hard for me to make good choices in that regard. I'll do all kinds of other things because I don't really know what the real problem is. So that's great. And then, in terms of, again, I just want to reemphasize, all the ways that I try to control people or manipulate situations, it's not because I'm a bad person. It was just my way of trying to stay safe, my way of trying to take care of myself, my way of trying to get what I think I want or need. In chapter 4, I said, I only have 2 problems in my life. One is I perceive myself as unlovable, and the other is I perceive myself as powerless. Those 2 perceptions of myself, those 2 core beliefs about myself, create all the dysfunction in my life, create all the character defects, create all the messed up relationships and everything else. So as I begin to see myself as powerful, and when I use the word powerful, I mean I can take care of myself. I can make choices to make sure I am safe at night. I do have the power to create safety, to take care of myself, to put myself in healthy situations instead of harmful situations, like I did in the past. I'm much better at the people that I pick to be in my life. I'm a much better people picker now than I used to be. But I just want to emphasize again, all the stuff on those lists, it's not because we're bad people. It's not because we're defective people. It's we didn't know how else to take care of ourselves in life. And I can have compassion for that part of me now. I can have understanding. I can love that person who needed to do all those things to feel safe or to feel loved or to get what I thought I needed or wanted, and all of that. So not make myself wrong for that, not beat myself up for any of that, and I can make amends. This is the beauty of the 12 steps, In steps 8 and 9, we make amends to the people that we've harmed through our own dysfunctional behavior. And I had a lot of people I had to go through, I chose to go through, to take responsibility for my part in all those relationships where I was codependent, where I did control, where I did manipulate, where I was dishonest, where I was inconsiderate, where I was fearful, where I let these defects of character, these survival strategies, get in the way of having healthy, functional relationships. So great. Thank you, Cynthia. Anybody else want to chime in on this? Talk about what it means to make a decision or codependency or anything else?
I'm coming.
What do you got?
Yeah, no, I think you're hitting a nail on the head. I guess for me, there are other people that are in a 12-step program, but I was not. but I certainly was with somebody that was in a 12-step program. How long was it? 50 years? No. Yeah. Right. Something like 40 years. So I know about it, but I was never in one. And when you're talking now, obviously, for me anyway, it was codependency that really was my downfall. I just didn't know it.
So, well, I want to come back to, so we said we were going to
Mine.
see if we could find a word for you.
Yeah.
And so if you identify with the codependency,
Yeah.
you know, and again, this is the thing, we don't know. I mean, nobody tells us, especially when we're, you know, younger or whatever, that there are other ways to interact with people. There are other ways to relate to people that are more healthy and functional.
Well, to tell you the truth, like being in a relationship with somebody that's in a 12-step program, I would have to tell you that so many times people told me to go to Al-Anon, which I kind of understood was maybe the program to make me have an awareness of who I am in that relationship. But I never went. You know, I was like, no, you know, I was not ready for it. You know, I was like, fine. That person has the problem, not me. So, yeah. So, yes,
Right, good.
codependent.
So, and reflecting on it now, you know, it's like, all right, so, you know, I did the best that I could. You know, this is all I had. And I'm not going to comment directly on your relationship, but I know for me, it's like, you know, I was trying to do the right thing, but I was doing it in the wrong way.
Right.
You know, I was trying to be loving, I was trying to be helpful, but I was going about it in kind of a dysfunctional way. And so, you know, my intentions were good. From what I know about you and your relationship, your intentions were good. You know, your intentions were in the right place. But until we learn about, you know, there's another way to do things, and that maybe what we're doing is not the best way to handle the situation, it's hard to see that.
Mhm.
So that's why I presented this list tonight, which is for people to begin to have some awareness, to have some, you know, to kind of have some consciousness about some of these issues. Because this doesn't, you know, this stuff doesn't go, this is not on the side of the bus when it drives by. It's not on the, you know,
Right.
billboards as you're on the highway. You know, you got to look for this.
Yeah, you do.
And a lot of this stuff passes for normal behavior in our relationships.
Yes, it does. Mm-hmm.
All right, good.
Okay. So do we get the word?
Well, I think the word was the C word. Codependent.
Oh, okay, thanks. Okay.
I mean, that's what you said.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. That I
So-
have been living that way for a very long time without any understanding of it. And it has, like you just did with all your lists, has so many, you know, streams that come out of it. I mean, it's like bing, 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 bing. I mean, what did you list? How many did you list? So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I should have went to an Al-Anon meeting. No, kidding. Who knows? You know, whatever you did in the past, if you didn't do it, then you didn't do it. You know, somebody was telling me to do it, I would have gotten a little bit of an awareness, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's you know what? It's not what we did or didn't do. It's what are you going to do
Right.
now?
Yeah, and I'm not trying to say that, you know, right. I guess I'm just bringing up 12-step programs, and you keep on bringing up, are wonderful things. They have so many tools in it for people. And there's many, many different programs. It's
Yeah.
not just alcohol. Yeah.
There's something for everybody.
Yeah, that's what I think I'm trying to say. There is in the 12-step programs. Right. So everybody should be in one. No.
Well, you know, in all honesty, I always thought that it would be helpful, like in high school, to have a class on relationships where you talk about stuff that you would hear in CODA, for instance, in Codependence Anonymous, or in Al-Anon or whatever. So
probably.
So yeah, and it's, you know, for me, it was very helpful. For a lot of people, it's very helpful. There are other ways, you know, it's not just 12-step programs. Some people get what they need from therapy. Some people get, you know, from reading a book or whatever. You know, however we wake up to the fact that there might be a better way to do what we're doing to get where we want to go.
Yeah, like what you just said. And sometimes it is a shame, because if you talk about young kids or in school or high school, and then they have their teachers or their principals and everything, yeah, they do have that awareness or those skills. And they do probably try to impart them on the young person, but that young person's just not listening. That's got to be very frustrating for both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Been there, done that. All right, thanks, Peter.
All right, good. Thank you, Barb. Anybody else? Lynn, you want to say anything about the list?
I'm nothing. I will see the replay in 48 hours, and maybe I'll come back with something.
All right, yeah. It was a lot.
Yeah,
I probably could have just did 1 page. I didn't have to do 4 pages or 5 pages.
no, it's okay. I will get on it. Promise.
All right, good.
Thank
Good,
you.
good. Thanks. All right, anybody else? Everybody good? All right, so I'm gonna play the song. We'll come back. Just stick around because I have a question for you guys before we wrap it up for the night. But let's play the song, 3.5 minutes. All right, guys, so that's it for tonight. Anybody want to say anything before we wrap it up?
Hey, Peter, I watched your interview with that fellow. It was quite entertaining and delightful. I'm so glad you got to do that.
Great. Yeah, thank you. I did, for people who don't know, I was on a podcast recently, Convergence Healing. So yeah, it was fun. I'm hopefully going to have a lot more of those. So putting it out there, getting some exposure, you know, that whole thing. So good.
Have a great week, everybody.
Have a good week, everybody.
Good
Bye.
night, everybody.
Okay, good night. Bye.
Good night, guys.
Bye.
See ya. Everybody have a great night. Oh, be bigger than you think you are today and every day.
You too. Thank you.
All right.